write about or talk about my experiences, they quote unquote could not guarantee my survival, which was kind of a warning from then Secretary Donald Rumsfeld, who had served as the defense attaché to Project Pegasus. I wasn't briefed by Rumsfeld, but I was briefed by a representative of the executive office of the president. So that was coming out of the cabinet. I have done so many interviews, I don't think that they would kill me or physically obstruct me from going, because I think that would just raise the alarm of the fact that I've been telling the truth. So I think their approach has been to ignore me, Sasha.
Well, I have a question. Did you and your father ever talk about how you saw each other, and did you ever get what was the purpose of this mission? And he had his mission, and obviously they knew that you could probably run into each other. Did you ever get all the back end information on it, what was going on?
Yeah, what I was able to deconstruct is by speaking with my father is the following. Basically, he had been sent there to see the Gettysburg Address, to see if they could use plasma confinement to literally send a human observer in country, as it were, at another time and place, another time place, to view an historical event and all of the quantum paradoxes of that. Like, for example, had he been photographed, had he not been surrounded by other attendees, they would have then seen my dad in photographs of the event. But what happened was, because on a later day, 4 days later in real time, let's say they sent him around 1967, 68, when these technologies were emerging, and then they sent me 4 years later. When he was standing there, he learned that I would be in the project, but at an older age than I was back at the house. So let's say when I was around 4, he was encountering me as an 8-year-old. Mm-hmm. No, excuse me. When I was around 6, he was encountering me as a 10-year-old. So I was there in 72, so he probably went in 68 when I was 7. You see? So that's why he looked younger than me by about 4 years, and I looked older to him by about 4 years. So I was just teleporting to New Mexico with him at age 6. So around that time, while he was teleporting, he was clearly involved in other forms of time travel, because he was sent via plasma confinement to Gettysburg on the day that Lincoln was there. But as a result of what I did there, well, secondarily, I should say first that clearly when he took me to the time lab in East Hanover, and under the direction of Stirling Colgate, sent me to Gettysburg, they both knew that he had encountered me there at around that age. And then probably would have studied things like my memoir to find out that it was spring of 72 and so forth. So what month did they pick? They picked April of 72 to take me over there. And then by May of 72, I went. So clearly when they confronted me and gave me the opportunity to go, it was because my father had already encountered me there. And that was a past contingency that they were fulfilling by sending me.
Was the technology different in 2013, or was it identical?
I gather that it was the same device, because my dad worked very closely with Dr. Stirling Colgate. I could tell his knowledge base when he was describing the technology and so forth. My dad, it was within his ambit as a Defense Department engineer to learn all of the devices. And since he had played a principal role in the development of, or the fulfillment of the work going on into Tesla teleportation, having recapitulated Tesla's teleportation experiments from 1899 in Colorado Springs, when my dad was working for the Edison Labs in West Orange, New Jersey, between 1956 and 64, since he was an expert on teleportation, they had him familiarizing himself with how the other devices worked. I once asked him, for example, how the chronovisor worked, and he gave me a very elaborate technical explanation. So I think that my dad probably went through the plasma confinement chamber to Gettysburg, because it had to be either that or chronovision, because they had to get him home from 1863, and they did get him home to the present. So, and the other complication was that I had turned my back right as Lincoln. After I turned my back, seconds later, Lincoln must have got off his horse. That's one of the things I found last October. Lincoln rode a horse from the Wills Hotel up on the northeast corner of town, down Baltimore Street, made a right at Emmitsburg Pike, and then a left at Baltimore, and went into the cemetery grounds there on horseback. And he didn't just walk to the west side of the dais, as my father had said. He had said Lincoln steps astride the dais right here. He had actually gotten off his horse, and somebody probably grabbed the reins of the horse, and then he walked onto the dais. And let me tell you something. In history, in the study of American history, I earned a Bachelor of Arts in American History at UCLA in the early 80s. I can tell you that there's been a great deal of emphasis about how unpopular President Abraham Lincoln was during the Civil War.
Yes.
He was hated for the suffering during the war. He was thought to be a tall, ungainly idiot because of the distinct simian lines around his mouth. He had a very unusual formation around the mouth, which was a complete wrinkle from the nasal frenulum all the way underneath his bottom lip. He was called a monkey, and so forth. All of the political cartoons of that era show how truly homely he was, and even caricatured him as a chimpanzee. But I can tell you this. The cheer that I heard behind me when President Abraham Lincoln stood astride the dais that day in a small town in Pennsylvania, in the north, where 50,000 combatants had been killed or wounded. Remember, the Civil War killed 2% of the American population. And after the war, prosthetic limb stores were the most common shops in every town in America.
Wow.
And I can tell you that there was certainly reason for people to be bitter at the president. But when Lincoln stood astride that stage, I heard a cheer that went up for him that I have never heard in any other setting. It was a common exhortation. It was a spontaneous burst of pure love and admiration for Abraham Lincoln. I could hear women crying. I could hear children cheering. I could hear men cheering in the heartiest, most heartfelt way you could ever imagine. It sounded like a concatenation of metal being thrown down a set of stairs. It was orgiastic in its sincerity and in its fervor of admiration for Mr. Lincoln.
Wow.
And I will never forget it. It gave me chills up and down my spine before I then transitioned back to 1872. I heard the cheer, but I didn't see Lincoln. And then I quickly did a head check to the left, and I saw that Mr. Brady had put the photographer's cloth back over his head. And then I saw the flash out of the left corner of my eye as I began experiencing this Kundalini-like sensation, which was what we felt when we would transition back to the present after being placed under plasma confinement.
So you were transitioning right there in front of everybody, back to the present.
Yes, in fact, one of the analysts who's been analyzing the image of me at Gettysburg, I believe it was John Gannon. I know it wasn't William B. Stillings, but I think it was John Gannon. Found a way to eliminate all the white in front of my face, because my face is blurry. And he found that the photographer captured the whole left side of my dentition, not just my smile or my mouth, but when you get rid of all that white that is covering my face, he found inside my top and bottom teeth from the front of my mouth all the way to my molars.
Wow.
In other words, it had like an X-ray effect, because apparently, excuse me, Brady photographed me as I was literally protoplasmically transitioning back to 1972. So my teeth, being more dense than the flesh of my face, were still in 1863, while my cheek was forming in 1972 in East Hanover, and they actually had this sort of primitive X-ray effect where my whole teeth can be seen in that image.
Do you have that
on the
image?
left side of my head.
Do you have that? Can you post it?
Yes, I have. I'll have to look for it, but I have that study. I'll have to go through my Gettysburg file, and it shows basically that the whole left side of my upper and lower teeth is visible in that photograph when you get rid of the blurriness on the left side of my face that he captured.
That's amazing. I wonder what Matthew Brady thought when you disappeared.
Brady may very well have seen me fading in and out of view. You know, he ducked up and he saw me standing there. He looked up from his photographer's umbrella and did a couple head checks. I'm wondering if he was watching me fade in and out before I finally faded out permanently.
That would be very interesting.
He may have seen me fading.
Wonder if he left a diary. Yeah.
Well, he seems to have focused on me in the photograph. If you look at the photograph, I'm standing in such an unusual way, and it's totally at variance with the way people were standing then. I was standing in much more of a sort of a laid-back 1970s position, and he did capture me fading. So I don't know whether I faded and then became solid and then faded again, but he was definitely scrambling to take the photograph in light of my position, or maybe my condition. I don't know.
What about your hairstyle? Oh, we'll be back after this commercial break. Everybody, sit back in 5 minutes.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent news story, and I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Hey folks, Captain Nighthawk here. Do you have a favorite host? Well, imagine if you all having all the broadcast shows of 2013 to listen to anytime you want. Awesome deal, huh? Anyway, so stop by freedomslips.com and order the entire 2013 library of your favorite host for just $30. Not only do you help with the station funding to keep us on the air, you also help the host because they get half of the net on every order. Also, we have Revolution Radio's all-time favorite shows all on one disc. The details are really broad, so you'll have to visit the website and go look at the details yourself. It's, again, www.freedomslips.com/season2013.htm. And get your favorites. First come, first served, 7 to 21 days for delivery. Thank you. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps, including me. Later.
We've got to stop them! They're going to kill us all!
Tune in Tuesdays at 12 noon Eastern on Studio A to hear Tammy Adams share her knowledge of an unknown realm on Talking with Your Angel. Join Tammy as she uncovers hidden secrets about the spiritual world of angels, ghosts, and other entities that have been with us longer than we know. Tammy is a psychic, a teacher, spiritual coach, a leader in her field, and will be sharing her information and stories with you. So join us on Tuesdays at noon on Studio A. With Tammy's guidance, you'll find out who has been watching over you from the other side, and soon you will be talking with your angel.
Join Revolution Radio every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Studio B for Momentary Zen with host Zen Garcia at freedomslips.com, the People Station.
Revolution Radio. to Revolution Radio, Freedom Slips